And then there were only 2 weeks of Worlds left, only 3 performing days. But before we get to that, we have one final quarterfinals to do. I crack myself up sometimes. Anywho, hi, this is Vision Denial. I'm Sam, and this is our daily sweepers, where I take some dramatic readings of my notes for each of these international games and just kind of get my overall thoughts of what's happened so far. I'm recording this, I think, like straight up 8 hours, or close to 8 hours after the series had finished, because I work. And I wish I didn't have to, but it shouldn't happen for the next coming couple of episodes. That said, a couple of things to note. If you're new here, the notes that I read are mostly like I write things in order as I see them and as I perceive them, and then give off what I think should be the adaptations that each team does over a period, so on and so forth. It's a little bit more in-depth than the kind of like overall tonal thoughts that I had for one given game that I did in previous daily sweepers. Also, there'll be highlights on the bottom over here. Those highlights were done and made by the VCS, the Vietnamese Challenger Series. Check them out. We haven't had them in an international competition in a while. They're fantastic and their games are great. All that with now to say that we should head into game one, where, because of side selection and seeding, Gen G get to choose blue side, and C9 will just have to stick with cruddy red side. It's not that cruddy. Game one. Gen G's round one bans look primarily to shut down perks. Banning the LeBlanc, the Aurelia, and the Twisted Fates allows a lot of flexibility for the top side of the map so that they can play around that. C9 get rid of Yumi, Renekton, and Misfortune, a lot of the skirmish and team fighting options that you can tell that Gen G tends to rely on. A lot of comfort, and mostly some options that play around neutral objectives. For the round one picks, Gen G take up Aphelios, Jinzhou, and Lulu, which gives them quite a bit of scaling options and likely for more neutral fights. While it's on Cloud9, just take Ziggs, Lee Sin, and Yasuo, which is just some dive and sieging. Just one thing in mind. Whilst for the round two, C9 ban the Azir and Set, which tend to get rid of any re-engage or disengage option that would deny any dive possibilities that would come from the draft so far from C9, while as Gen G banned dive options from Rakan and Leona. To round out the draft from this, Gen G pick out Kennen and Aatrox, which allowing for a lot of zoning and some very smart team fighting from their end. While C9 complete their whole dive composition with Nautilus and Jarvan, which is just a big let's go in and get them. So big signals, we're coming for you. Heading into the game, the level 1 invades for vision and knowledge gives the edge to Gen G, who plant deeper and stronger vision overall. And Gen G is already garnering specific leads from the 2v2 kill bot lane, but Fudge still manages to get a kill solo on top. This is like a very bizarre early game from both sides in terms of the laning phase. As Gen G keep up some incredible vision early in, C9 take very little in terms of investment whatsoever, relying on some shallow defensive vision or even being second to the vision, which tends to be denied quickly by Gen G. Gen G are trending first to any particular potential play, but, you know, C9 still having been a strong roaming team their map movement is still being fairly incredible across the tournament, uh, still show up fairly quickly, despite the fact that they're only answering and responding afterwards. Now, Gen G take this opportunity to secure a Baron, kill a mispositioned Fudge, and then get the TP out of Sven. And all of this while Ruler gets to be grabbing solo plate. Baron. Yeah, that's right. No, didn't get solo plates. Sorry, secured a Herald. What am I doing with these notes? Well, then still securing solo plates. Gen G are garnering leads very easily, and C9 need to expend significantly more resources just to keep Constellation, including a Drake. And as we entered into the mid-game transition, Gen G have a 2k lead and full map control. Now, Cloud9 are playing a slightly stronger vision game coming into this mid, but still falling short in terms of any other proactive plays. As they start bleeding resources and overcommitting to a dive and losing 4v1 top, while still being hugely disjointed and uncoordinated. And from all of the leads previously gathered, Gen G have 2 full TPs that they can still use to punish. C9 are reverting back in this game to some of their hero play moments, and it causes them to create a lot of disjointed fights with very little success as they manage to get 1 kill, while Gen G get another Herald and multiple turrets to follow from it. Gen G are giving up too many Drakes, to my opinion, that Cloud9 are gladly taking at this point, and can give them it gives them an avenue to come back from that. Now, C9's disjointed attacks are looking to aim for teamfight options and slow down the game, and they are fighting them, but they're not getting much afterwards in terms of successful picks or they're trading down, which means that they're never actually progressing the game. They're just delaying things, and that can be a win in some sense, but if you're delaying things but giving them more of an avenue to win, it doesn't help. Gen G have some incredible vision and neutral setup, which allows them to bait the Baron and deny Dragon progression in the soul point. And it slows down any potential comeback from Cloud9 using the Dragon avenue. And this mid-game has slowed down a lot, giving C9 some chances to come back in gold, and that's not a good sign given the way the Gen G had approached it. Who, granted, require the pace of this game to increase as the game goes on. As we enter the late game transition at 25 minutes, C9 finally find an engage opportunity, get 5 for 1 for the team fight, and secure Baron, switching the gold lead back to C9. As we enter the late game, C9 are playing a 2-lane Baron very well, breaking the base and bot side. They don't get the inhibitor turret, but they end up securing the soul point while still keeping coordinated. With a 1.5k lead, C9 are still not large enough to just win fights outright, as Gen G have invested their win conditions very properly early enough in the game, and finding a team fight to get a 3 for 2 slow down C9's approach completely. Cloud9 have really upped their vision play as they keep going into this game, as well as up the aggressive vision and strong denial, giving them full vision, full knowledge of what's going on around the map, and it makes it harder for Gen G to approach and play the game. Now, while trying to set up for Soul, Perks plays hero and dies. But, Cloud9 secure the Soul, lose the Baron, though, as the late game scaling gets bigger and bigger for Gen G. C9 are playing this Baron defense well enough given the wave clear options that they have, but Gen G are still moving a strong 1-3-1, and with BDD putting enough pressure gives the inhibitor bot side for Gen G, and we're entering the point of the game where Gen G, with a 3.5k lead now, is more of an indicator of control and less on which team has stronger team fight at this point. We're 39 minutes in, and almost every single non-support role is level 18. And completing item slots, the better coordination and vision will make this first game. This is an indication of like most of this game had not been properly approached early game by Cloud9 or mid game by Gen G, where Gen G had not properly cemented their roles or upped the pace, leaving the situation where both teams are now so far late into the game that the team fight execution and the vision execution will make or break the game and barely anything else. Now, Gen G are showing some strong wave management and taking advantage of the inhibitor to properly set up an Elder Drake take as well as Baron, and they end up having the tools to close out this game at this point. And then Gen G used this double buff to complete the inhibitor, like all 3 inhibitor takes, and they get double super minions and the incredible pressure from this lane to close out the game textbook style. Gen G win 1-0. And as we head to the next game, Gen G had a very simple and easy comp to play. But their timid and slow nature just meant that Cloud9 could come back at an equally scale. The lack of proactivity does not help when they need to be first to every play at all points of the game. Cloud9 on their end, you're still showing moments of hero play syndrome, but at least it's not as bad as it used to. Shore it up and you should be fine. If you want to play this aggro style, though, where mostly onto the top side of the map, you have to aim to give Fudge non-tanks, especially if Sven is going to be placed on Ziggs. Adding Jarvan weaken the overall team fight outside of picks. Switch it up to create more options for yourself in turn of the late game. With that, we head into game 2. With the loss, Cloud9 get to choose the side and decide to go blue, and Gen G end up with red. Well, for the draft, Cloud9 aim, round 1 draft, aim to get rid of any teamfight tools that indicate wanting to siege or dive from their end. Banning in the Aphelios, Nami, or Jarvan, a lot of it would still end up a lot of tools to be able to successfully take a dive. While Gen G get rid of any particular side lane or pick options and avoiding any particular skirmishes, still banning the LeBlanc, Twisted Fate, and Yuumi this time. Yuumi being a red side ban from both of them indicates to me more that Yuumi's the problem and that the other 2 picks were mostly perks aimed. Cloud9 for their round 1 picks tend to pick a core that have solid dive and siege in terms of the Misfortune, Leona, and Poppy, allowing siege options as well as the dive afterwards. While Gen G's R1 core, the Rakan, Lee Sin, and Jhin, aim towards more picks and skirmish to help assist with any particular neutral setup. With the round 2 bans, Gen G aiming to get rid of the Aurelia and Jace, are limiting any solo lane options while still looking for some split push in terms of top lane focus. While Cloud9 getting rid of the Azir and Kennen are getting rid of more teamfight options, things that would assist them in terms of 5v5 instead of any skirmishes. They also tend to double down in terms of like diving options that would exist. And then as I say that, Malphite and Sylas get picked and locked in for Cloud9. And that just indicates go, 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 go. Let's dive, 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 dive. Which seems to be a popular trend for them. While Gen G round out their comp with more skirmish options. Syndra and Graves don't do necessarily anything to solidify 5v5, but they do include a lot amount of zoning tools for their neutral setups. Now, both teams here have some good early vision or are properly tracking the junglers, but Perkz losing out really hard in the lane, gets ganked and loses flash and dies under turret as BDD and Clid give nothing for it. And this is a repeated thing. BDD, they're just like, in this game, capitalizes everything for that lead. Uses the extra TP to dive in topside and or to teleport top and then dive Fudge, and it only makes them use one TP, and they have a TP advantage immediately, and they get a 1k lead by the time the 5-minute mark hits, which is a much more proactive look by Gen G at this point. Both teams are still opting to make trades of resources, but Perks and Fudge are dying to dives and bleeding much more than Ruler and Liv are giving, which helps Gen G with the full priority and everywhere. Now, Cloud9 have managed to garner the Herald during any particular resets, and are making setups to assure that the pace doesn't spiral so full out of their control. Now, Perks is still getting caught out a lot and not taking advantage of the Silas, which means that Cloud9 need to commit some resources to clean up. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to take advantage of the Herald properly, and then it just dies. And once they try to improperly use the Herald, Blabber gets caught. And then we enter the mid-game transition with a 3k lead for Gen G, and C9 look the most disjointed I have ever seen them in. Now, Gen G with a TP advantage, use it to dive top, and BDD may only have 6 assists, but 100% kill participation, creating the global pressure alone. Now, they started ballooning this lead in vision and denial of so many resources, taking camps away, zoning them off of waves, and overall splitting C9 apart. And C9 are not sure how to approach things. It looks like they are playing autopilot. The vision is good, but not helpful when the pressure and setup from Gen G means they can only watch the second Drake and Herald being taken with virtually zero contest. Cloud9 do try a proactive play at 17 minutes with some strong double TP, but Gen G are wise to this situation. Reposition so well, answer the teleports, and turn it around for a clean team fight, getting 4 for 1, 2 turrets, the second Herald was taken, and despite this 8.5k deficit, Cloud9 are still doing as much as they can, keeping up some strong vision and managing the waves incredibly well. They just find themselves having a hard time moving around the map, as they tend to get picked off very easily. Now, where Cloud9 are finding proactive plays and picks, it's offset by the gold lead, making it easy to navigate a strong ability to grab neutrals across the map. Gen G are able to get to a Baron, a 10k gold lead, and strong control as we transition the late game. And Gen G waste no time picking stragglers that are too far forward, destroying 2 inhibs, and generally navigating this Baron extremely well, narrowing the lead, or knowing, the lead that they have, opting to just close out the game with the Baron cleanly. Blinked and you missed it. Cloud9 had no avenue at all. None of them were given to ever play the late game or come back. We just transitioned to it and then closed out the game. Cloud9, you had a great pivot with your draft, giving Sven a pick for better sustained damage while keeping the kinds of picks that would work for your overall style in your team. But draft or not, the disjointed plays really showed up like a sore thumb. Recenter, recollect, and move past the stump. Avoid asking to play it back again, because that usually never works. Or avoid running it back. And Gen G, keep this up. This was incredible. Beautiful proactivity. Keep up the tempo. Beautiful game. 10 out of 10. Then we ahead into the next game. Entering game 3. Cloud9 have one last chance. They decide to pick blue side. And Gen G end up with red side. Drafts. Round 1 is just a run back of drafts. Aphelios, Nami, and Aurelia on the blue side. LeBlanc, Twisted Fate, and Yumi on the red side. It just tends to insinuate the same thing. Now, on the round 1 picks, however, Cloud9 make a change and instead pick Graves. So, at this point, trying to make sure that they have a little bit more power for their top lane side and changing it up in terms of their team fight dynamics, likely playing more towards sieging and neutral objectives. While as Gen G stick to the same picks for their side, don't fix what isn't broken, I guess. While as around 2 bans, Gen G are taking away some early proactive jugglers from Blabber, just to avoid any particular aid that would help on the top side. Getting rid of the Olaf and the Jin Zhao means that it's harder for any of the other options to exist that would contest the Lee Sin and make it harder to enable Fudge on their graves. Round 2 picks, Cloud9 round out their composition with a Syndra and a Jarvan, which still allows for a lot more siege and zone control in the same way that Gen G had in the previous game. While Gen G just pick up some comfort picks. They take the Renekton and the Zoe. And those have strong skirmishes and allows a lot of opportunities to pick and play around neutral objectives and chokes from within jungle, and still having some siege and dive options. Heading into the game, Cloud9 with a very creative level 1 invade Gen G, who have zero vision at this point or knowledge of the situation. And with it, they managed to siphon a lot of camps and gold from Gen G just completely. And with a really good 2v2 mid from Cloud9, they end up with first blood for Blabber. Gen G are still being proactive in attacking the top side, stopping Blabber from snowballing too much. But Cloud9 is still moving as a unit, showing that they're still coordinated in these efforts and are avoiding being disjointed. And they're playing this vision game so much better than the previous 2 games, allowing to grab so many more picks and skirmishes that end up in their favor. This is such a shift in style, playing much better neutral setups, guaranteeing the Herald, and forcing Gen G out of any particular options so that they can't contest anything. Now, Gen G have not shown consistent proactivity throughout this particular early game, but they're still finding moments where C9 lose out in some communication or disjointed for a brief moment, and they punish with some picks to help bring back everything. Now, Cloud9 have managed to keep up the pace in full control despite losing some Drakes, and they managed to still keep also a 1k gold lead thanks to the Herald and as we enter the mid-game transition. Now, this play from Cloud9 looks wonky as they invest 5 members top from the first tower, while Ruler gets a full turret bot side. Gen G invest and misplay, however, a 4v5 top, hoping to probably dissuade or stop it, and end up losing all 4 of their members in the top side, only gathering 1. Ruler is ahead of the pace for his own particular role, but Cloud9 get a second Herald and 2.5k lead at 16 minutes, invalidating most of that particular advancements and global answer. Gen G have managed to get the first 2 Drakes and can play towards that one condition, but as C9 breaks the 3 tier 1s, it limits much of the mobility that is required for Gen G to be able to navigate this composition, and it's clear that neutral objectives at this point are not going to be in Gen G's control at all. The pressure is on them, and Gen G are forced to make defensive TP plays. But both teams playing vision very well means that C9 are struggling at this point to stop Gen G from gathering any resources. So to clarify, what I mean by that is that despite Cloud9 keeping up the pace, pushing up the pressure, and making sure that Gen G don't have the pace or any say of anything, because both teams have been playing an incredibly good vision game at this point, Gen G are able to find pockets of avenues to gather resources slowly but surely to avoid any large-scale snowballing. Now, Cloud9 do have control of the pace completely, but since Gen G still have some of the wiggle rooms for resources, means that they still can contest a lot of the vision and have the whole bottom lane completely taken for their 2 outer turrets in the bot side. And they end up with first to set up and can guarantee the soul point from this, which is a huge misplay out of Cloud9. And this will incredibly hurt the sustained damage opportunities and sustained team fights that Cloud9 have managed to grab themselves from the draft if they can't stop the soul from Gen G. Cloud9 need to properly suffocate and control the lanes or lose out to neutral play that they just given up or poorly contested around the Drakes. Now, Cloud9 are playing the Vision Denial more aggressively, and as we head into the late game transition, despite how well the early game setup had been done, this mid game had faltered, and they only have a 3K lead when it should be more. Now, Cloud9 are grabbing more leads to balloon well, but they're also not setting up for the neutrals properly. They end up getting poked and picked out by BDD, who creates a strong team fighting opportunity, and Gen G end up winning 4-for-2, and that allows them to guarantee the Mountain Soul and strong control of any future team fight. Cloud9 no longer have the opportunity to dictate what's going to happen. Gen G are picking off stragglers, and the C9 have defaulted to a 1-3-1, which is not optimal for their particular composition. With one down, Gen G are trying to force C9 into a very bad position. Gen G did not set up, however, super properly the particular Baron, and then Cloud9 ended up pushing them out. Now, the tension is palpable. And with Clid, finds an incredible pick at 31 minutes and 40 seconds, and you end up getting a 4-for-1 team fight, allowing Gen G to grab the Baron for certain this time, and holding the pace of the game, but nothing is certain as the map is open for everyone. And then as I finish typing that at 33 minutes and 6 seconds, as Cloud9 is trying to set up for the Elder Drake, Blabber gets picked, and Gen G win a 5-4-0 team fight, securing themselves a 3-0 victory with this turn. Honestly, Gen G played significantly better than most people expected. Do I think that most people should have expected Gen G to lose and Cloud9 to win? No, I don't think that's the case. That feels very misguided and out of place. Cloud9 had not shown anything in terms of consistency to really garner any confidence that their best-of-5 run was going to show anything substantial. No. But Cloud9 did show some strong forms of adaptation from game to game, and I have to commend them for that approach. They did draft differently, and they did end up opting into different strategies all 3 games instead of defaulting. While you can't really say that much for Gen G, who, sure, they didn't play the same draft every go, but their stylization tend to look very autopilot and very inflexible, which might hurt them going into their future best-of-5. But unfortunately, they still play each of their roles significantly better and have a stronger understanding of how to control different resources and zoning during the mid-game and transition to the late game. So it leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth to see a team that doesn't adapt very well but still had much better approaches and understanding of their win condition win out against a team that had shown such huge amounts of improvement throughout the tournament and better adaptability, as well as some interesting proactive options. Now, I would not take a look at this and say, oh no, the West is terrible again. What are we gonna do? There's a moment of history, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about this in the Vision Denial podcast, so I'll just mention it briefly. There's a moment in history of League of Legends where China was the 3rd or 4th place region on a regular basis. They would have their moments of glory every so often, but they would never be solidly 2nd. It would always flip between Europe, North America, and China, and it just so happened that everybody was playing for second fiddle. And it only recently changed the narrative because Europe always second fiddled China, who had recently won. And I feel like that's a good way to reestablish a context of what's been going on historically as well as politically in terms of like the League of Legends competitive scene. That said, we wouldn't have to worry too much about that particular type of discussion if they actually started winning more often. And you can talk about formats and all the rest of that stuff, and like formats do need to change. But given that this has been the format for so long, and the teams understand how to approach this, the better teams tend to win still way more often. And Cloud9, knowing full well that this was not the best team from North America, in fact, it was not even the best performing team in groups. Cloud9 still had a negative record going into it, having to play a best of 5 to get a slightly less negative record. They ended the record the same score as Team Liquid in groups. So no, at no point did I ever think that Cloud9 was going to win, but it does give context to the fact that Cloud9 made it out of groups. Imagine how the other North American teams are going to play against Gen G or any of the other lineups. And so I would take the fact that Cloud9 had a strong showing in Games 1 and Games 3 as an indicator that Gen G is by far still not a strong contender going forward. Aha, pull the twist. It's not like be proud of North America. Be proud of North America, but we knew that from groups. North America still has to do better, but that's for other reasons completely. Gen G, however, concerned me because their lack of adaptability still got contested pretty strongly in Games 1 and 3, and Games 2 was primarily a fault of Cloud9 in the early game, or Perks, and Gen G knew how to capitalize. Gen G knew how to snowball leads. They just don't know how to pace themselves properly to gain, like to push the narrative, like push the game forward, or adapt from game to game in a series. And so, like, I don't expect them to win against EDG. I'm solidly confident in that statement. I would not. This is not a series to watch, to say. Out of the 4 series, this is the least fun one. It has interesting moments, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend, yes, what a palpable and fantastic series to peruse. It was another series that by the time we hit 10:40, it was done. 10:40 Eastern time. It took 2 hours and 40 minutes to win 3 games in a row. And I'm pretty sure that's because of game 2, but it still took no time at all. And that's not a good sign for North America. And it was not fun to watch. But there are things about this series that should indicate that Gen G are not should not be considered a strong favorite going forward. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think Gen G is a strong contender going forward? Do you think the Cloud9's performance in this was above average and even adequate given what we were expecting of them or should be expecting of them? I'd love to hear it. And also, those who are watching, I appreciate all of you who watch. It means a whole lot to me. If you do enjoy your video and you're new here, leave a like and subscribe. And I'm going to see you for this next Daily Sweepers Saturday, as there's not going to be any games until then. So you get a whole 5 days break from me. We might have a Vision Denial episode ready for Thursday or Friday. Uncertain. Still planning the schedule for that. But hopefully we get to discuss, as we don't get to buy a jersey. None of the teams we predicted went through. Na 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 na. Anywho. And again, thank you for watching. And I'll see you then. See you Saturday.